Taehyung only needs to look, and Jungkook already knows what to do. When Taehyung is present, Jungkook's attitude changes completely. This isn't a coincidence or a momentary occurrence, but a constant. Every time the two are in the same place, especially when Taehyung is watching him, Jungkook behaves differently. His energy increases, his movements become more precise, and his attitude reflects a clear desire to impress. This behavior has been repeated too many times to ignore. It's not just admiration, it's a direct connection to Taehyung's presence. Jungkook improves because he knows Taehyung is watching him, and that has an emotional value that needs no explanation. There are many videos where this is clearly evident. On stage, in interviews, and even on live broadcasts, Jungkook appears more focused and even more expressive when Taehyung is with him. Even in silent moments or when they seem not to be interacting, the closeness between the two changes the atmosphere. The mere presence of each other is enough to provoke visible reactions. This pattern can't be erased, not even by the company's attempt to separate them. Distance doesn't change how they feel, but rather highlights even more the effort they make to stay together. Most evidently, when there's space to be together, they make the most of it. In situations where they have the freedom to move or choose where to be, they choose to be close. On broadcasts with several members, the two end up side by side. When waiting, resting, or recording, they seek each other out. And when they can't be together, their glances speak volumes. Jungkook finds ways to get closer, even with small actions that seem casual, but aren't. Taehyung also responds, as if he knows the distance can't last long. Taehyung took off his jacket, and Jungkook took it without saying anything, and in that simple gesture, Taekook spoke louder than any declaration. During an unforgettable concert, Taehyung and Jungkook starred in one of the most iconic moments for all Taekookers, the famous jacket exchange. This act wasn't simply a casual touch on stage, it was a silent language the two shared in front of thousands of people. Jungkook, without needing words, took Taehyung's jacket as if they had rehearsed it hundreds of times, but the truth is, it wasn't part of the show. It was a decision between the two of them, an action that demonstrated a trust and connection that was hard to ignore. That night, their movements were different. They changed parts of the choreography just to be closer, they blew kisses that didn't seem part of any routine, and they were seen twirling together as if the stage was theirs alone. Their closeness wasn't subtle or measured, it was open, evident, and clear. This moment confirms something that is often denied: their relationship isn't based on coincidences or fan service. It's something that is built step by step, in every glance, in every minimal action, even in something as mundane as passing a jacket. In that instant, they both showed something stronger than a nice gesture. They displayed a synchronicity so profound that not even the pressure of their surroundings could erase it. The exchange was more than clothing. It was a symbol. An act of belonging. And seeing them do it in front of so many people without trying to hide it leaves a clear message: their relationship isn't something they have to hide. Every concert in which their gestures transcend the ordinary, every small detail that seems minor but holds meaning, strengthens what the audience already perceives without the need for proof. Taehyung raised an eyebrow at Jungkook in vampire mode, and with that silent gesture, Taehyung said it all again without needing to speak. During a recording where all the members were reacting to a performance, one thing stood out effortlessly. While the others watched with neutral expressions or controlled comments, Taehyung showed a completely different reaction. He naturally raised an eyebrow at Jungkook appearing with vampire-like makeup. It was a simple gesture, but so clear that it needed no explanation. That expression of surprise and attention was enough to make it clear that, at that moment, his eyes weren't on the screen. They were on Jungkook. What was most evident was that, although everyone was seeing the same thing, only Taehyung reacted that way. His reaction was slow, as if he already knew what was coming, but still couldn't help but be impressed. Everything about his face changed. From his focused gaze to the movement of his eyebrows, it was evident that seeing Jungkook in that state had a different effect on him. He didn't just seem surprised by the video's concept. He seemed captivated by what it meant to see him like that. Taehyung has shown many times that he doesn't hide what he feels when he sees Jungkook. Whether on stage, during filming, or in private situations that later come to light, his body language always gives him away. And this moment confirms it. The fact that he doesn't need to make exaggerated comments or jokes, but still makes it clear what's going on, sets him apart from the others. The way he looks at Jungkook is unmatched by anyone else. The relationship between Taehyung and Jungkook hasn't been easy to maintain. There are rules, boundaries, and decisions made by the company that have tried to distance them. But despite everything, they always return to each other. This resilience shows that what exists between them can't be broken by simple schedule or position changes. Even when they're apart, they find ways to stay connected. And when they finally manage to spend time together, they don't waste it. Every second is used to reaffirm what we already know: they are united by a strong bond, difficult to hide. For a long time, Taehyung fans have observed how their movements adapt to stay close. When one moves away, the other moves in their direction. When they're not in the same shot, they look at each other. When they can't speak, they observe each other. It's a constant dynamic, repeated too many times to call it a coincidence. The company knows this, and that's why it has tried to separate their activities, position them at opposite ends, or eliminate shared moments in the final edit. But the bond remains, even without words. They don't just resist external decisions, they confront them. They take advantage of every opportunity to be together, even if it's for brief moments. In group greetings, farewells, and rehearsals, the gestures are there. They're not exaggerated, they don't need to be. They're small details that carry a lot of meaning. Sometimes it's a touch on the shoulder, a shared smile, a sideways glance. These are signals that only they fully understand, and that the Taekookers know how to interpret without difficulty. Besides, it's not something new. This behavior has continued since the group's beginnings. Over the years, it has matured. It's no longer just games or public jokes. Now, they're controlled gestures, conscious decisions. They're not seeking everyone's attention, but rather to maintain their own. They're not trying to convince anyone. They're living a relationship carefully, within the limits that have been imposed on them, but without ceasing to protect it. That's why every moment they manage to be together becomes so special. Because it's not easy, but they don't abandon it either. One of the most striking aspects of that night was how Jungkook and Taehyung decided to modify the choreography in the middle of the show. Instead of following each step as planned, they began to adapt to each other, creating new movements that clearly had a purpose: to get closer. It wasn't some pointless improvisation, it was a way of breaking the rules of the stage to follow their own. For a long time, Taehyung fans have noticed how, at many concerts, the two allow themselves this kind of freedom with the sole goal of shortening the distance. It's not the first time they do it, and it probably won't be the last. Jungkook moves toward Taehyung even when his part doesn't indicate it, and Taehyung waits for him without being bothered. On the contrary, he greets him with a smile, sometimes with a knowing glance, sometimes with a touch that lasts longer than usual. This can't be explained as a simple choreographic error. These are deliberate, though unrehearsed, decisions. It's as if, on stage, space is given to a part of them that always wants to be closer. That kind of approach speaks of a deep comfort. No one changes such a big show for someone who doesn't have a special place in their life. No one exposes themselves to the public like that if they don't feel that what they have with the other person is worth it. Taehyung and Jungkook don't try to hide what they feel. Even if they don't speak openly, their actions speak for them. When the music gets louder, they reach out for each other, and when the beat slows down, they stay close, without needing to pretend nothing's happening. Every change in the choreography is a silent demonstration of the kind of connection that unites them. Sometimes, it's enough to see how their bodies align without speaking, how one turns to face the other even though it's not in the original script. And they do it without worrying about how it will look. There's something in their gestures that isn't afraid to show. They don't seek approval or attention, just to be together a little longer than the show allows. These modifications also mark an invisible boundary between what they share with the audience and what they keep just for themselves. Because even in the midst of thousands of people, they create their own space. A space where they can touch, look at each other, and talk silently. And while many may call it a coincidence or part of the show, those who know Taekook well know that these changes aren't repeated with anyone else. This isn't the first time Taehyung and Jungkook's reactions have captured attention. Over time, they've shown that their way of looking at each other and responding to each other's presence has an intensity that remains strong regardless of the time or place. In this case, the impact Jungkook's outfit had on Taehyung was clear, but so is the fact that this dynamic is repeated. When Jungkook sees Taehyung, the same thing happens. They both watch each other intently, with a kind of interest not found in their interactions with others. During many recordings, broadcasts, and concerts, you can notice them searching for each other with their eyes. When one appears, the other can't help but react. They don't do it out of habit or for the audience. They do it because there's something between them that requires that eye contact. And those reactions, while not always exaggerated, feel real. You can see them in small gestures, like a smile, a raised eyebrow, a change in posture, or a sudden silence. Every time they face these moments, it's easy to see that hiding it isn't an option. Even if they don't say it, their actions expose them. Jungkook changes his expression when he sees Taehyung. And Taehyung watches him as if it were impossible not to. In this specific reaction, Jungkook knew everyone was watching the video, but he still seemed to be waiting for only one opinion. And that opinion was clear, Taehyung's. It's no coincidence that their reactions always generate comments among Taehyung fans. Not only because they're different, but because they're consistent. They never try to pass them off as something more. They don't hide when it happens. On the contrary, they act as if it's not necessary to pretend they're not watching. And that has made each of these moments become another piece of a story they've been showing in parts for years, without the need for external confirmation. Besides, there's no difference between what they do in public and what they let on in more private broadcasts. There are always signs. There's always a look that lasts longer than usual, a reaction that comes too soon, a word that's directed only at the other person. In this case, Taehyung's reaction wasn't planned, but it was inevitable. Because when Jungkook acts like that, he responds without thinking. And when Taehyung does it, Jungkook reacts in kind.